Good morning. This is Jim Ransom with another episode for you poetry lovers. Today it's going to be entitled, very original name, Potpourri, because we're going to be reading some diverse poetry, mostly modern. By that, I mean that most of the poems I read are from the 20th century on. And we'll nab a little Shakespeare as well as poems from the 18th and 19th century periodically, but I like to stay in the modern lane. January is almost finished, and that's not all bad. Here in western Pennsylvania, we are covered in 6 inches of frozen snow, which came down wet. A mess, but a beautiful, colorful mess. With the sun shining on it. It's only 16 degrees out there. I'm staying in most of today, I can assure you. Think how it must have been for our ancestors living in drafty log cabins heated by a wood fire, wood that you split yourself from trees you cut down yourself, sleeping under buffalo hide blankets. If you didn't chop and split enough wood early in the year, well, you better hope your neighbors are generous, but don't count on it. But I digress. We're here for poetry, aren't we? And today's poems, I think, are really good stuff, starting with T.S. Eliot, but with the poem from his Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats. Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats. I was rummaging around to find this and discovered I had actually 2 copies of it with drawings by Edward Gorey, who also illustrated a great book of poetry by Hilaire Belloc, from which I've read to you in the past. Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats has a lot of really neat cats in it with neat names. And the one that we're going to read today is Skimbleshanks, the railway cat. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it, and I think it was one of the poems that was in the movie Cats, but I'm not sure about that. I haven't seen that movie for a long time. And I'm not even sure I saw a movie. I think I saw the stage play of Cats in New York. And that was many, many years ago. But this is a good wintertime poem, I guess, because here's the Edward Gorey illustration for the book, and you'll see that the gentlemen, at least, all are wrapped up tight with winter coats and even a fur coat in one instance. So I know exactly how they must have felt. There's a whisper down the line at 11:39 when the night mail's ready to depart, saying, "Skimble, where is Skimble? Has he gone to hunt the thimble? We must find him, or the train can't start." All the guards and all the porters and the station master's daughters, they are searching high and low, saying, "Skimble, where's Skimble? For unless he's very nimble, then the night mail just can't go." At 11:42, then, the signal's nearly due, and the passengers are frantic to a man. Then Skimble will appear, and he'll saunter to the rear. He's been busy in the luggage van. He gives one flash of his glass green eyes, and the signal goes all clear, and we're off at last for the northern port of the northern hemisphere. You may say that by and large it is Skimble who's in charge of the sleeping car express. From the driver and the guards to the bagmen playing cards, he will supervise them all, more or less. Down the corridor he paces and examines all the faces of the travelers in the first and in the third. He establishes control by a regular patrol, and he'd know at once if anything occurred. He will watch you without winking, and he sees what you are thinking, and it's certain that he doesn't approve of hilarity and riot, so the folk are very quiet when Skimble is about and on the move. You can play no pranks with Skimbleshanks. He's a cat that cannot be ignored, so nothing goes wrong on the Northern Mail when Skimbleshanks is aboard. In the middle of the night, he is always fresh and bright. Every now and then he has a cup of tea, with perhaps a drop of scotch while he's keeping on the watch, only stopping here and there to catch a flea. You were fast asleep at Crowe, and so you never knew that he was walking up and down the station. You were sleeping all the while he was busy at Carlisle, where he greets the station master with elation. But you saw him at Dumfries, where he summons the police if there's anything you ought to know about. When you get to Gallowgate, there you do not have to wait, for Skimbleshanks will help you to get out. He gives you a wave of his long brown tail, which says, "I'll see you again." You will meet without fail on the midnight mail, the cat of the railway train. Skimbleshanks. I think that's a great poem, and it's amazing that of all the poetry that T.S. Eliot wrote, probably going on into the 21st century now, we would have to say that the cat poems are the most popular. Okay, moving on to another poet, a favorite of mine, John Crowe, Ransom, no relation. This is what the old gentleman looked like in one of his classes at Kenyon College, where he taught for most of his career. This is a seasonally most appropriate poem from the book of selected poems. It's called Winter Remembered. And this poem, I should say a little bit about it. It's the work of a real poetry craftsman, and he creates a metaphor of lost love and the chill of winter as the other part of the metaphor. Two evils, monstrous either one apart, possessed me, and were long and low that going. A cry of absence, absence in the heart, and in the wood the furious winter blowing. Think not, when fire was bright upon my bricks, and past the tight boards hardly a wind could enter, I glowed like them, the simple burning sticks, far from my cause, my proper heat and center. Better to walk forth in the frozen air and wash my wound in the snows. That would be healing, because my heart would throb less painful there, being caked with cold and past the smart of feeling. And where I walked, the murderous winter blast would have this body bowed, these eyeballs streaming. And though I think this heart's blood froze not fast, it ran too small to spare one drop for dreaming. Dear love, These fingers that had known your touch and tied our separate forces first together were poor 10 idiot fingers, not worth much. 10 frozen parsnips hanging in the weather. I've always loved that poem. I've read it many times. Sometimes we've even gotten it right without too many goops. But it is the work, as I said, of a real poetry craftsman. Now, then, here's a poem from the latest issue of Prairie Wings, which is published by the Audubon Society of Kansas, Audubon of Kansas. It's a favorite charity of mine, which ordinarily doesn't publish poetry, but they came up with a good one this issue. In fact, it's the first poem I can remember finding in Prairie Wings. And the poem is called Birds of America by Elizabeth Dodd, and it references the extinct passenger pigeon, but also focuses on the mating dance of two scissortail flycatchers, which are a very common country bird in Kansas, seen frequently along the highways and byways. To give you a little bit of an idea of what a scissortail flycatcher looks like, here is a picture of a pair of them above a utility wire, a telephone wire on a Kansas highway. And you can see the bird below getting ready to receive food or perhaps a smooch from the bird above. That will help you to understand the poem a little bit better. After the photograph fixes the image in stasis, the mind keeps wheeling back. What does it feel like, this hovering memory? A flavor from childhood, a word the tongue can't quite call forth. The heirloom pears, crisp pre-war tang, discovered in a farmer's market far from home. La poire, le marché, their erotic a burr in the throat. But why these thoughts, incongruous in time and distance? Unpack the century's texture, the ribbed spiral of the live wires, the insulator's unfocused globe, the bird's neck arcs, a dancer's head flung back, beak rising in the écru air, and there, the flash of apricot beneath the scissortail's wing recalls the watercolored throat, la gorge, of Audubon's Columba migratoria, the passenger pigeon. From a lichened speckled branch, the female reaches arabesque to feed her mate. The tenderness and affection displayed by these birds, he wrote, are in the highest degree striking. But these flycatchers only mimic in my eye rhyme of their forms extinction's apparition, assembled from the Haitians' paintings of some buckshot skins. Now let your eye lift from the crouched male's echo of a vanished dance to where, along a road in rural Kansas, the other male, wings and tail akimbo, feet clenched like fists beneath the body, hangs momentarily medieval like a morning star, a flail before the blow. Well, it may take a little commentary to understand this poem, but he's kind of going back and forth. Remember that Audubon was French, and so Elizabeth Dodd, the author of this poem, throws in a little French, La poire for the pear, le marché for the market, which she's already mentioned. And they're rhotic a burr. In other words, if you say la poire, le marché in good French, you have this burr. You have this movement of the tongue. So then she references Audubon's painting of the passenger pigeon, where the female reaches to feed her mate, and she finds in this flycatcher picture an almost exact replica of that. And so that's how she's putting this poem together. It's a little complicated, but I hope that my explanation has helped a little bit instead of making it even more incomprehensible. Yes, we have these scissortail flycatchers in Kansas. I've seen them many times, and they're very unusual birds. So those of you in Kansas, if you haven't gone out in the country and paid attention to the presence of the flycatcher, in the Flint Hills is a good place to find them. I hope you will in this coming summer. Okay, I hope you enjoyed today's verses. I know I did. But just to give you a heads up, next month is, I believe, Black Poetry Month, as well as the month that houses St. Valentine's Day. And all of that will be a challenge. Oh, and next Wednesday, what happens early in February? Well, Groundhog Day, a big deal in Pennsylvania here where I am. And so I'll see you for our first February program next week. Bye now.